Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Eons of Battle. We've been going through a little bit of a dry spell with Games Workshop, basically with every company, because that's just how January is. Every company blows their entire advertising budget on Christmas because that's just when people are really primed to spend their money. And then January usually cools off. But Games Workshop is picking back up with the steam with a whole bunch of new stuff showing off at LVO. And I just want to go through every single one, and man, there's a lot. First, I want to talk about the new Seraphon and the Slann Star Master. I adore the old Slann model sculpted by Juan Diaz, who's one of the greatest miniature sculptors Games Workshop ever had. But with that being said, the new one is absolutely fantastic. It's amazing, just a big, fat, kind of frog-looking dude. He looks like remember in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, the best Star Wars movie? Remember when there was the guns, but then their leader was that big, fat, green guy, Boss Nass? This is like if Boss Nass really let himself go. This guy, this guy is fantastic. He also has like some little bowls in front of him, like those are his snacks. Like when he's floating into battle, leading his host of Seraphon creatures into combat, is he just like snacking on some little flies? I just love it. It's like Jabba the Hutt. It's so awesome. It's got some great little details, like a winged serpent hanging off of the base. It's really, really good. I love the old model, but I mean the new model. What's always great is when a new model is better in every way than the old model, and the old model was also fantastic. This guy is just awesome. The only thing it's missing, there used to be, I forget, or no, was that Croak? Was the guy with all the bandages? I think that was Croak, and so we got a new Croak, which is amazing. And now we've got a new generic Slann. Actually, technically two generic Slanns, because this comes with options to build two different big fat frog guys. And man, are there not enough big fat frogs in Age of Sigmar. So thankfully Games Workshop is getting those numbers up. Oh, and he has cute little cheek spots. This model is great. Wonder what that little albino skink, like what is his job? I think it looks like he might be holding something. But it'd be funny if like he had like all of the spells and he just like shuffles through the scrolls to get him his spells so that he can read them and cast them. I really was planning on starting a Seraphon army, and I actually like there was a sale that was going down on the Facebook Marketplace for an entire Seraphon army, and I tried to pull the trigger, but somebody got to it first, and then after that I kind of cooled off and I started to collect some other Age of Sigmar stuff. But man, the Seraphon are calling to me again. And speaking of Seraphon, the Raptidon Hunters. These models are perfect. They are amazing. I love everything about them. It's interesting that they've kind of gone a little bit more of the feathery route, which dinosaurs did have feathers, and they probably looked a lot more like this than the classic like Jurassic Park depictions. Which, isn't it really lame that the new Jurassic Park movies have 80s dinosaurs in them? Like why not do something kind of cool and refresh them a little bit? These are supposed to be new dinosaurs in all these Jurassic World movies, like newly, I guess, manufactured. Like why not do something a little bit cool and show people something that they've never seen before? But instead they're like, well, people like the 80s dinosaurs and we want to make the $1 trillion and so whatever. These Raptor Riders are fantastic. They kind of have like Dilophosaurus-y frills. And one thing that I think is really smart is the design of these dinosaurs. These are the Raptidon Hunters. They're the skink cavalry. And I think it's really, really smart to have the skink cavalry look a little bit less fearsome. They're a little bit more chickeny in appearance. They have these little chicken hands and somewhat like blunt faces. They still look kind of menacing and like they could do a little bit of damage, but it leaves the door open to have a more vicious, monstrous looking creature for the Saurus warrior riders that I'm sure are gonna come out because they actually refreshed the Saurus warriors, and so presumably the Saurus warrior riders are going to be coming soon. But yeah, these models are beautiful. I absolutely love them. It looks like they're probably on the 60mm oval bases, which I really like. Those are the new cavalry bases. Gone are the days of the old Games Workshop pill. Oh, those bases were horrible, but man, these little Raptidons. Oh, you're cute little guys. They are really fun. I also like that the skinks have a very human face, like a very anthropomorphized face, where their mounts have just these dead animal eyes that are like just placed weirdly. When you want to make something look stupid, a great way to do that is, or not stupid, like unintelligent, a great way to do that is to have the eyes further up on the face than the mouth. Like usually when you look at animals, their eyes are set further back than their mouth. But if you want to make a character look really dumb, you put those eyes forward. And that's what Games Workshop did here. And it's just lovely. It's just beautiful. Love these models. And speaking of models, I love this new Seraphon Saurus Warriors. I was a little surprised. I thought the Saurus Warriors were maybe okay. But then I went back and I looked at the old Saurus Warriors and whoa, they really, really needed a refresh. And these guys are wonderful. Furries are gonna go nuts because it's just a dinosaur with big human muscles. It's great, I love it. They've got such beautiful posing. They no longer have to be all tucked together because they have to fit next to each other on those square bases and movement trays. And so they can all spread out on their oval bases and look great. Man, these guys look impressive and imposing. And the first thing I thought of when I looked at these guys is, man, do they have a bulge? Like I get, like they're reptiles, and we don't need to go too far into anatomy, but it's sort of fine that they don't have loincloths. But man, seeing a human six pack and then just a Ken doll smoothness down there is a little. Am I the only one? Am I the only one who sees that? It's a little bit of a dome down there, and it's great. It's fine. Everything's fine. Maybe that's just me who had that thought, but these models are lovely, very beautiful. I love the new shield. The old ones were just kind of like a round dome, where they have a really interesting kind of hook on their shield that protects some of their shoulder and upper body. It's a really, really smart design. You can see on some of these guys who are protecting themselves, their shield is designed in a way that it protects more of their body. It's just really a nice design, and it leaves the door open for plenty of lovely design work on the actual shields. And it's gonna just put a little bit of army paint or greedy gold on there, a little airbrush of silver from the top, and then a wash. Oh, it's gonna look so good and paint up so easily. Yeah, the new Seraphon are gonna be really expensive because the Seraphon were the beneficiaries of being old ass models, and so some of their older kits were a little bit cheaper, but it might be worth it just because the models are so good. And staying in the world of Age of Sigmar for a little bit longer, they showed off the new Warcry box, and one of these teams is phenomenal, and the other team is also very good, but I don't really like it. The Soulblight Gravelords, the Soulblight Bleep Blops, the Eskurgan True Blades, Japanese-inspired vampires. They're wonderful. They're lovely. They feel almost Malifaux to me. They're so cool. And it's such a great take on the vampires. Like, Games Workshop stays pretty true to the classic depiction of a vampire, at least in the Soulblight Bleep Blops. But these guys are fun. They've got their own theme going on. You've got like some samurai warriors, some ninjas. You've got one guy who's sort of transforming into a wolf, and then one guy who's way more transformed into a wolf. Man, these models are lovely. I'm not sure I love the paint job, but I think it might just because their paint job and then the other team in the box's paint job are very, very similar. And I think if you made one very different, I think it would tickle my brain in a slightly better way, because it'd be like, yeah, that's team A and that's team B. But speaking of team B, the Claws of Karnak. They are probably the best Khorne models we've ever gotten. But for some reason, Khorne always just, it just doesn't do much for me. It's buff dudes with some neat weapons and some scars and the Khorne symbol, which is slightly confusing to me because typically in Warcry, you've got human warbands who have been touched by a certain chaos god, but they are not necessarily aware of the power of the chaos gods, where these guys have Khorne symbols on them. So like they must have met Khorne and understand what's going on, which is a little bit of a departure from typical Warcry, but these models are epic and very cool. And I like the guy who's like halfway turned into a Khorne hound, but I don't know. I think Khorne is just not for me. I like the other three gods a lot more. But overall, this Warcry box is looking really, really neat. I don't know if I love it quite as much as the Seraphon Jade Tzeentchian Warriors, but I do really like the vampire ninjas. They are very, very cool. And speaking of a fantasy world full of magical creatures, Warhammer 30K. They made a new tank, the Cerberus Heavy Tank Destroyer. I'm pretty sure this model already existed in resin from Forge World, and now it's going to be available in plastic, which is great because it's going to be a little lot better for very slightly cheaper. Seems to be the way that they've been doing that. The tank looks great. There's nothing particularly wrong with it. The only thing that I thought of is, if you look at the turbo laser destructor that you can get for a Titan, it's the size of this tank. And this tank has it inside of it. Where are the crew? Like, we got that one guy poking out the top, but are his legs standing on the gun in there? Like, does he have to scooch in there and then kind of worm his way to the very back of the tank, and that's where he controls the actual tank? Like, is that where the steering wheel is? I think the idea is, the original one was probably a kit bash of a bunch of different Games Workshop kits, and so they probably sawed the barrels of the turbo laser destructor and glued them to the front of a tank, and so they just imagined that there was room inside of there. But it's just silly to think that, like, there's no room. There's no room to actually have a crew compartment in this tank, and yet there must be. So it's a very cool little thing. I wonder, because it's a turbo laser destroyer, I mean, surely it can melt any tank in the game in one hit, just like the Titans can do. So maybe this is going to be a little bit more like, if somebody brings a Titan, then you get to bring your heavy tank destroyer. Or maybe it's just going to be able to annihilate a tank every single turn. It's probably going to have 40k rules, and I wonder, because 30k is a very different game to 40k in terms of like power and what options you have. And so I wonder if there are going to be rules like, oh yeah, 30k stuff has rules for 40k, but you really shouldn't bring them because it kind of throws off the balance of the game, and it gives Space Marine players who already have way more options than anyone else, way too many more options than everybody else. But it's still an excellent tank, really like it. Ooh, Warhammer Underworlds Gnarlwood, the Grizel's Arenae. Grizel's Arenae, a new Daughters of Cain Underworld team. And they're fine. They're fine, but there's a few things weird about them. This is the second Daughters of Cain war band that we've gotten for Warhammer Underpants. And I think the first one was quite a bit better. I feel like you got a nice spread of stuff. You got 2 witches, you got a Melusai, you got a Sister of Slaughter, you got a Slaughter Queen. You kind of got a little tasting of all of the different units available to you in the Daughters of Cain faction for Age of Sigmar. The new one is just 5 Sisters of Slaughter, which is fine. Sisters of Slaughter are pretty cool looking, and I like that each one kind of has their own unique weapon. But I don't know, the old one just hit a little bit harder. And another weird thing is that they don't really have sculpted bases, and that is how Underworlds works. You get a sculpted base. They're not always the most fancy thing in the whole world, but it's always there. And then over here, these Grizel's Arenae, they have sand and static grass. What the heck? I don't know if maybe they're planning on having this be a normal unit for Age of Sigmar, because usually the Underpants teams, they do sell, once they stop selling them for Underpants, they sell them for a little while as just a generic thing for Age of Sigmar, but they don't really have special rules, so they don't quite work, and they drop from the web store fairly quickly after that. So maybe they're planning on having these stick around as their own unit for Age of Sigmar. That's a very slightly different Sisters of Slaughter unit. I don't know, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but they're pretty good. I mean, there's nothing worth complaining about, but I just think that they're a slight downgrade from the team that we got before. And speaking of the teams we got before, Kill Team. This is what I was waiting for, and they showed it off last. I was waiting for almost an hour to see these guys. Those fellas in their flannel shirts just talking about nonsense. I needed my Kill Team, and they showed it off. I mean, we sort of already knew what the teams were because they showed the silhouette of the Dark Eldar, and then they showed off the puppy, the doggo from the team. But the Drukhari Hand of the Archon, just the normal Kabbalite warriors with, it looks like, quite a few upgrade bits. And they are what you'd expect. They're pretty much normal Kabbalite warriors with some new stuff that's sort of interesting. I mean, we've got a needle gun and a bird. It's a nice bird, not a bad bird, but what's kind of funny is that the other Eldar team, the pirate Eldar, the piratical Eldar, they also had a bird assassin, and then this team also has a bird assassin. Not quite different enough. And it wouldn't have taken that much to be a little bit more different. Like, how come it can't be like a wormy guy with wings? Like, I would have accepted that. Just have it be a weird other not bird thing. And then that would have been fine, because presumably the bird is going to make it available so that you can use the bird ability to get rid of somebody's conceal order, and then you can activate them and shoot them, which is exactly what the other Eldar character with a bird can do. I would have liked something maybe a little more. Maybe a little wormy guy who tunnels under the deck of the Space Hulk and finds people for you. Just make it just a little bit more different than another bird. Have it be a bat. You know, just have it be a little something different. The Eldar are the good guys, so they get a bird, and the Dark Eldar are the bad guys, so they get a bat. It's just a little something, but I would have liked a little extra spice. Yeah, the Eldar are fine, or actually the Dark Eldar, actually the Drukhari. My apologies, I'm sure nobody knew what I was talking about. But they're a perfectly good team, and I would be fine to collect them and paint them up. But really, what we were all waiting for was the new, because these boxes always come with one old thing and one new thing. The Adeptus Arbites Exaction Squad. And I have some things to say about these guys, because they're lovely. Number one, the models, I really like the models. They definitely moved away from the old classic Judge Dredd Arbites, because they can't just make them Judge Dredd. But these guys are probably 90% medieval suits of armor, 10% cop. I would have liked a little bit more cop. And the Arbites aren't necessarily cops. They're a step above. I guess they'd be maybe marshals. So usually planetary defense forces, they'll have a police who's just people from the planet who take on that role in society. And then the Arbites are people who just show up to be the super police, the police of everybody. They don't live there. They don't have stakes in the planet, and they have absolute complete authority over everything. And so they have the better gear, they have better weapons, they can do anything that they want, and everybody absolutely hates them. So that's kind of they're Judge Dredd. They just are Judge Dredd. And so that's what the Arbites are, and it's really cool to get models for them. But 2 boxes ago, or I guess 1 box ago, with Into the Dark, we got the Imperial Navy Breachers, which were regular guardsmen who had a little bit of extra armor and shotguns. And these guys are guardsmen with a little bit of extra armor and shotguns. I'll need to see the rules, but so far it doesn't feel different enough. I was kind of hoping Games Workshop was done with normal human teams, because man, we got Compendium Guard, Compendium Tempestus Scions, we got Veteran Guardsmen in the Death Corps of Krieg, the Ophidian Star Striders, the Traitor Guard. I think I'm missing one more. There's a lot of regular old human teams. The Khazarkin. I mean, there's so many. And this is another human team of 10 guys with bolters and shotguns. And I think we're finally getting to the limit. It would have been kind of neat. I mean, this is 10 guys. It would maybe figure out a way to have some of these guys be a little something different. Like maybe they have they have some sort of an Arbites power armor. Or maybe somebody carrying around a giant cage that you can put people in because they arrest people. That would have been kind of fun. What if you could cage somebody and then the other team could break them out of the cage? Like that would be, or it doesn't even have to be a cage. Maybe it's like a little puck that they put on the ground, and then you take that model and you put them on the puck, and the puck is like a force field that keeps them there. And now that guy is stuck and he can't take actions until the other team manages to come and break him out of the puck. That would have been such a lovely, fun little gamey thing. But instead, I mean, there is a guy with shackles. Maybe there's something to that, but I don't know. For some reason, it's looking like a team of probably 8 wounds, 3 ups to hit, strength 3-4 weapons on most everybody, a decent range of, it looks like 50% ranged fighters and 50% close combat fighters. It does have the doggo, which is a lovely little touch. I appreciate the doggo. I wonder if it's going to have identical rules to the doggo in the Ophidian Star Striders kill team. It's got a guy with a riot shield, which the Imperial Navy Breachers had a guy with a riot shield. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. They're very lovely models. I'm excited to see what they can do in game, but enough with the humans. Enough with the humans. I mean, Adeptus Custodes still need a little bit of a special treatment. Tyranids still need the kill team treatment. I'm pretty sure Death Guard need the kill team treatment, and then I think they'll be done with every single faction in 40k. But yeah, the Adeptus Arbites, however you want to say it, they're pretty good. They're pretty cool models. But now moving on to the Space Marines. There's 3 new Space Marine units. 2 of them are fantastic. And one of them, we'll get to that one of them. The Brutalis Dreadnought. This was always going to happen, a close combat dedicated Redemptor Dreadnought. I'm all for it. I absolutely love this thing. I have 2 regular Redemptor Dreadnoughts, and so this is going to be number 3. I like that he actually has 2 different pairs of fists. He's got normalish fists if you want to do a sort of anti-infantry Redemptor Dreadnought. He's got double bolters on his arms. He's got double bolters in his chest. He's got essentially a bolter on his head. You can just dump tons and tons and tons of probably strength 4 shooting into squads. And then you've got the other one. I don't know if they have different names, but you can have the pointy talon claws and double multi-meltas in his belly. And double multi-meltas are going to kill most things, and if those most things don't die, I guarantee those talons will finish it off. There's no problem. This model is great. I love it. The problem with Space Marines is Space Marines have so many options that it might be, oh, well, this guy with his 2 fists and covered in bolters, he can do a lot of damage to infantry. But you know what else can do a lot of damage to infantry? Like 17 different units in the Space Marine Codex. So now it kind of becomes a game of, well, which one kills the most infantry the best for the most points? And so I wonder if this Dreadnought is going to be a massive point sink. And so everybody in the world will go with the anti-tank version, and nobody will ever touch the anti-infantry version. Even though the anti-infantry version can do its job and is a lot of fun, it's not as efficient as some of the other units in the Codex. And so we won't get to see that many of them. So, it's just the tragedy of Space Marines being the poster boys. They get so many units that it becomes a problem. And speaking of things with so many units, new Primaris Lieutenant. Everybody rejoice! We finally got a Primaris Lieutenant. This is definitely not the 16th one. That being said though, what's great about this Primaris Lieutenant is it's actually got tons of options. This is probably the lieutenant that we're gonna get and be done with, because it comes with all of the weapon options that you can take. It comes with some nice head options, some nice decoration options. It actually comes with dick towel options, which I think is a really lovely touch. It's just a perfectly fine model. It's a regular old Space Marine. It's nothing that exciting to look at, but it's got a very slight tactical rock, which is nice. And it's just a Space Marine lieutenant that you can also just use as your Space Marine captain, because all Space Marines look the same. But it's great. No problems. It's a good model. The next models, though, I don't know if they're good models. They're sort of good. The Space Marine Desolation Squad. This, I asked for this. On some models of memories, I remember asking for Primaris Missile Launcher Squad. And now I got what I asked for. But they're so ridiculous and weird, and I don't like them. They have a belt-fed 6-shooter missile launcher with bigger missiles attached to the top of that belt-fed missile launcher. It looks like a Nerf gun. Number one, the guns are as big as the Space Marines are. And yeah, Space Marines they're like ants. They can carry 10 trillion times their own weight because they're wearing power armor. But it still looks really silly. It looks like a little 8-year-old with his Nerf long shot that's longer than he is, but it's pretty much weightless because it's all like plastic, and so it's fine. But I mean, I feel like I would have had no complaints if these were shoulder guns. They were on their shoulders like a boombox, like a lot of the older Space Marine units. Like a las cannon is as big, if not bigger, than a Space Marine. but because it is strapped to their shoulder pad and they're like holding it like some weird piece of machinery and it's got cables running into them. Like it feels like it's slightly cumbersome and hard for them to do that. Where these guys are running around with these super soaker looking things like it's absolutely no big deal. And things don't have to make any sense. I can be fine with that, but either do belt fed or 6-shooter. Don't have a belt fed 6-shooter weird missile launcher. Like, is there a little vat grown baby cherub inside of the gun who is picking up all of the bullets that the chain is feeding them and putting them into the 6 barrels of the under the gun missile launcher? I feel like they just, like, belt fed looks really good. Belt fed looks really good. But have belt fed on something that needs to be belt fed. It's just weird. I love the little shoulder lenses. I think that those look great coming off of the backpack. I really, really like Primaris power armor. It looks great. Man, those guns. I might buy a box of these just to see what I can do with them. Like, can I transform these into my favorite version of Space Marines with missile launchers? Because I do think if these guns were carried on their shoulders, it would be fine. And get rid of the belt fed. I will take the belt fed and put it on something else that'll look cooler with the belt fed. Maybe some heavy intercessors can have those belts. But man, those guns are... I appreciate silliness, but one thing I really appreciate with 40K and the silliness is the silliness usually works for the world. Like, but these, it's just silly and it doesn't feel like it works that much. It's just wonky. I mean, the guy holding up his gun that's bigger than he is, it's just weird looking. I don't know. And there's different types of missiles in this squad, which is kind of interesting and will lead to me having to read more rules. And presumably like the smaller missiles are going to be like a close range missile and the other missiles are going to be a long range missile. And this also leads to the Space Marine problem of they have a lot of different ways to kill tanks. And so are these guys going to be the most cost efficient tank destroyer squad out there? I would have liked some different helmets. Like, they're just wearing the regular intercessor helmet, but maybe like some helmets with, you know, one big robotic lens eye would have been kind of fun. Love those backpacks. Really like those backpacks. I kit bashed and converted a squad of Deathwatch Primaris intercessors, and I stole the lenses from the old Deathwatch backpacks and put them on the new ones. And I really, really like that. I would have liked these because they're even bigger and sillier and fun. See, that's what I mean by silliness. Having giant targeting lenses is dumb, but it makes sense because they need to see far. Giant, weird, cobbled together guns. It just doesn't, I don't know. Let me know in the comments below about your thoughts on the Desolation Squad. Is it just the silliest looking weird units you've ever seen? Or is it actually pretty cool and I'm just being a party pooper? Because I am often just a party pooper, but man, there is just something about that squad. Also, Space Marines aren't usually very grimdark or gothic, but these are very not grimdark or gothic. At least make the missile launchers look a little bit like something churchy. Like, you know, make, at least instead of having them be a box, maybe it's kind of shaped like a mailbox with a point on top, like it's a big old cathedral with a little skull at the end of it. Very, very lack of anything gothic in these missile launchers, which is too bad. There could have been. Yeah, just I think putting those on the shoulders would have done wonders, but having them be guns is just a little bit odd. It's also a little bit too bad that this is a squad. I kind of miss the old days of you have your big plasma gun in your squad of Space Marines or your missile launcher in your squad of Space Marines, where this is an entire squad of guys with missile launchers. Even the Devastators could only take 4 heavy weapons, but you could buy 5 regular Space Marines so that you had some extra wounds so that if somebody actually got a good shot off on your Devastators, you could remove normal Bolter Space Marines and leave your lovely 30-point las cannon guys for last. where every single time this squad takes 2 wounds, they're going to be losing a whole missile launcher. Also, the Space Marine Eradicators have really, really good range on their mega super plasma guns. And so are these guys going to have even more range? Maybe they'll have some stratagems where they can fire outside of line of sight. That would actually be kind of cool, especially maybe that's what their little shoulder lenses do. So there's definitely room for these guys. There's definitely things to be done. I just don't love the minis. And that's the only thing in all of this. Even the corn dudes, I think I like the corn dudes a little bit more than the Super Soaker Space Marine guns. Everything that they showed off was lovely. All of the models look great. I wonder if Lord Croak, the underside of Lord Croak's throne is gonna have a big hole in it. It probably won't. But wouldn't it be funny if it did? If that's just how Games Workshop does things from now on. But yeah, all of the new things from LVO are very, very cool. It's great to get new miniatures, and it's just a fun time. But speaking of things that are even more fun than the new miniatures from LVO, our Patreon. Over there, we have new terrain packs available monthly, and this is your last chance to get the Dark Factorum, a disgusting, bloody battlefield full of girders and rivets and super modular with over 75 components. We also make one extra episode of Eons of Battle every single week where we take a look at our viewers' miniatures and give them some critiques and ideas of how to improve their painting. We have painting guide PDFs, host live Discord hangouts, and we have one new tier where you can get your name on one of my Space Marines and you can join the Immortal Crusade. Looking at these new miniatures, I really hope that the 3 units they showed off for the Seraphon are going to be in a battle force together, or not a battle force, but a start collecting box, because that might be a really fun way to start a Seraphon army with the 3 most beautiful, newest models in the range. Hopefully it takes a while for them to become a pre-order, because I'm a little light after Christmas. Thanks for watching.